Welcome to another episode of Mental Health Mondays. It is the week of February 6th, 2023. Congratulations on making another week. It's no small feat. Say it every time. All right. Seriously, though, it's not. And I also say that every time. But every week that you make it is another week you have to try to keep making it. I don't know if that makes much sense, but that's what I keep telling myself because I've been struggling a bit mentally this past week. I don't know why. I feel like I'm struggling to accept my current place in life. And that can be kind of a daunting thing because I constantly preach that right at this moment, you're exactly where you're supposed to be. But sometimes it doesn't feel that way. So even though I know that that's the truth, it's hard to convince myself sometimes that right at this moment, every decision that I've made up until this point has put me where I am right now. And even if I'm not where I want to be, I am where I'm supposed to be at this moment. I'm trying to accept that. And it seems like it's getting increasingly difficult as time goes on. But it's just one of those things. You just kind of got to accept you're exactly where you're supposed to be at this moment. Everything's okay. Things are not as bad as they seem, and just kind of stay humble and realize that like things will work themselves out the way they're supposed to. Again, I'm struggling with that, but it is what it is. Last week was great, huh? That episode is the best one so far, I feel like. Shout out to Zach, obviously. He's listening, hopefully. It's just good to finally get someone else in here and bounce ideas off of each other and get other people's perspective instead of just talking to myself and sharing my own perspective. It was great. I genuinely felt like talking to someone else about mental health and just life and how to attack, hardships and difficulties and like stay perseverant, but also have grace with yourself. It was therapeutic for me. So if you watch that episode, which I really hope you did, because he was great. I hope it did the same for you. It's something I forgot to talk about last week. And me and Zach could have done 6 hours. We did basically an hour of podcast before we started shooting and then an hour afterwards. But something I forgot to mention last week was I recently tried sound bath. I don't know if you know what that is. I don't really even know what it is. It's like those, I think they're like Tibetan, those big ceramic. Actually, I'm making this up. I don't know what they're made out of. But those big bowls, and they drag the thing around and it just hits you with this wall of sound. There's supposed to be health benefits, whatever, but the light in which I did it was more of a meditational situation. Jay and I went to this place called Descanso Gardens. It's kind of near Pasadena, and just this beautiful botanical garden, which is funny because we went in, the end of January, so almost nothing is in bloom, but it was still gorgeous. And the first thing we did when we got there was this sound bath situation. And I bounced back and forth between being pretty spiritual and allowing my brain to go to different possibilities of what reality can be and what I know of reality and what I embrace as truth versus other alternatives out there, if that makes sense. Meaning, like, basically, to put it more bluntly, like, is this bullshit or not? I bounce back and forth. But overall, I feel like I like that kind of stuff. And I definitely am a big believer in spirituality and the universe and God. And there's something else that we can't necessarily quantify or explain that is running through all of us, that is connecting all of us at all times. And so I was interested to try this. Jay and I did it. Both of us did it. And so, you close your eyes and you're there and we're in this beautiful garden. So there's, mixed in with these kind of ominous ringing tones that they're playing. Very beautiful sound. There's, a bird chirping or a kid yelling in the background. And at first, it was really difficult for me to just quiet my brain and empty my head completely. And I was actually at first I was kind of angry. even though I was supposed to be in this blissful moment, again, in this beautiful location, doing something for myself and just like letting it be as therapeutic as possible, getting what I want from it, which was possible to get what I wanted from it. But anyways, at first it was really difficult for me to quiet my head, and there was like people behind us, because it wasn't just us two, obviously it was a crowd of people. You can't control people. And through the first like 45 seconds to maybe first few minutes of this sound bath, someone was just talking, and I kept getting so annoyed because aside from all this, aside from the point I'm ultimately going to make, that's so inconsiderate and annoying. Like, yo, the whole point of this is to be silent and to allow people to auditorily experience these sounds, like purely just this sound, not you chit-chatting right next to everyone. It was a little ridiculous. But what I'm saying is that even in this meditative moment, I struggled to just quiet my brain down and let everything else go. Eventually, she stopped talking, and I kind of let myself escape a bit more. But it was really difficult for me to quiet my head. My brain started going to different places I didn't want them to go necessarily, but it just, just this like, I don't know, my mind was completely racing, even in this moment that I'm supposed to slow it down as much as possible. But as it went on and I kind of got more used to like calming my mind back down, and I stopped ignoring the other sounds and let them kind of play into what became like a symphony in my head. And especially as a musician, I'm sure that's why I took this experience this way. But like I said, it was these beautiful ringing tones, just these steady notes of this beautiful sound. And to me, it was like that was the lifeblood of everything. That was like the ethereal thing that connects all of us, was this sound. And then I'd hear a bird chirp or a squirrel running up a tree. Just faintly I could pick that sound out. Again, my eyes were closed. And then I heard way in the background a baby crying, and it was like that was a representation in my head at that moment of birth and new life and new beginnings. And then maybe a toddler ran by what he saw as an odd thing, a group of people sitting down listening to these bowls. Obviously, it's kind of strange, especially for a kid. And he ran by and was like, "What's that?" And again, 5 minutes previous, I might have been annoyed that this kid was like ruining this experience for me. But it ended up just being like another layer to it, where it was like, oh, that represents the curiosity of humanity and the beauty in curiosity, and always trying to learn and experience new things as a kid does. Everything is new to a kid. And again, the birds chirping and the ant leaves rustling, like that represented nature. And it ended up just being like I made this whole symphony in my head of this one centered sound being everything, and then all these other little trickles of sounds around it being everything else, if that makes sense. And it ended up being like a really beautiful therapeutic experience for us. And it was tripping me out in my head, like, I wonder what everyone else is thinking, because I know I'm not the only one that can't quiet my head down. I'm sure not everyone's just sitting there hearing over and over again and just thinking, wow, this is great. But for me, that's kind of what it ended up becoming. It's like these bunch of different aspects of life, all resonating around like this central tone, and it was just really cool. I just wanted to share that. I don't know if I necessarily believe in some of the supposed healing properties of sound baths and stuff like that, and I'm certainly not discounting it or shitting on it for anyone who does believe in that or enjoys that stuff. But it was a cool experience. I would definitely recommend trying it. And in general, I just recommend trying anything and everything within reason, as long as it's safe. I just think that life is too short to not expand your mind as much as humanly possible. And also, it just seems like a boring existence to me to just stay stuck in my ways and not get different opinions and not seek out different experiences than what I would normally do. So I really highly recommend it if you get a chance to try it. It was cool. Everything else aside, it was cool. It was a cool thing. It was interesting. It sounded really cool. Again, I don't know the science behind the healing properties or anything like that. I don't know if it's real, but it doesn't really matter. I guess that like almost everything we do has this placebo effect to it, to a certain extent. So even if it was just placebo, I felt like I genuinely felt. And then finally, when I opened my eyes, because this thing lasted like 15-ish, 20 minutes, maybe something like that. That's what it felt like to me, at least. And my eyes were closed the entire time, even though I was so tempted to look, because the curious part of me wanted to at least like see what this woman was doing with the bowls. I know that you kind of just drag it around the outside, but I kind of wanted to open my eyes to see what was going on. But it is suggested that you close your eyes to kind of block out that part of your sensory, perception, and just focus on the sound. But so I kept my eyes closed, and when I finally opened my eyes, it was like everything. And again, this is also because my eyes were closed for a long period of time. So it was pure darkness and then the daylight. But it was like everything was so clear when I opened my eyes. It was such a crazy experience. So if you get the chance to try shit, fucking try it. Don't shit on it before you do it. I think maybe a different version of myself from a few years ago would have like not been so interested in trying something like that. Yeah, I don't know. It was cool. I've just been struggling with almost everything we talked about last week. Even though I know the right way of going about things and the right way of thinking, I'm really struggling with like my place in the world. And that could be like a lonely feeling, even when you're not alone, even when you're not a lonely person. I think I make too much of my own journey. And I have to humble myself again and realize that in the grand scheme of things, I am very small. There's a lot more going on than just my story. But for me, my story is everything. Even not to discount like how important my relationships are to me with my family, my girlfriend, my friends. All those things are very important. But my human experience is uniquely mine. And I've been having a ton of trouble this past week, like accepting it for what it is at the moment, because I have so many ideas in my head of what's supposed to be happening or what should be happening or what will be happening, that I'm really not stopping to smell the flowers, and that's really not me. So that's been a difficult thing to accept. On top of all of it is realizing like, man, maybe I'm not myself right now. And I don't know why. There's nothing like, I don't know. I guess there are some things that specifically have brought it on, but in general, it's like this week was kind of the same as every other week. And maybe that's why I feel like I feel a little bit stuck, and I'm trying my best to break out of feeling stuck. And I'll tell you what, with this whole mindset that I've had recently of like, are you a bitch? No, you're not a bitch. It's taxing. It can be, it has gotten to a point where it's not mentally taxing in terms of like telling myself I'm not a bitch over and over again is getting tiring. That part's fine. But actually following through with all these things that I'm telling myself I'm not a bitch, so you can do it. It's like, damn, it is hard to stay consistent. Like I'm exhausted. Waking up early every day and going to bed after I've gotten enough done, if that makes sense. I know you have to prioritize sleep, but it's like I still have to get my shit done. So if I'm waking up at 6 to go to the gym before working all day and then getting home and then eating dinner, maybe. Sometimes I don't eat dinner. Sometimes I eat lunch late at work or something like that. And then also not trying to like completely push my relationship aside because that's selfish and not right. But then on top of it, I know that ultimately I'm doing this not just for me, but for everyone I love. At least that's the story I tell myself in my head. So it's like I have to get in the studio and I have to do all these things, but then I get in the studio and 30 minutes of it sometimes, this is not every day, but just explaining like kind of part of the struggle of it. 30 minutes in the studio is me just judging myself and like not trusting what I'm doing or not knowing what the next move is, to the point where it's hindering my creative process, instead of just creating what I want, when I want, how I want, and letting the results be what they're going to be, because I don't ultimately have that much control over them. But I don't know. It's tough. I feel like sometimes I have a bit of FOMO. Everyone has fear of missing out. I think it's only natural. And I think sometimes it could be slightly positive. It's like you want to go out and experience new things, interesting things, fun things. You want to go out and have fun with different people, all that stuff. That's fine. But like the part where FOMO becomes an issue is like what I'm dealing with, which is like when you're failing to accept your place at this time and realizing that like you're exactly where you're supposed to be at that time. Now, that's not to say that like staying home every day and doing nothing with your life is acceptable either. I'm just talking specifically about the sensation of like anxiety that comes across when you see other people doing things maybe you want to be experiencing, or you think, oh, if I was in a different place in my career or my life, then I would be able to do those things that I'm not. So now it's making me upset. You have to just kind of have grace with the situation, grace with yourself, and realize you are exactly where you're supposed to be right now. If you're blessed enough, if you're lucky enough, there will be another opportunity to go do something and experience something. I don't know. But that's where it gets tricky in my head, because it's like life is very short. Every moment is precious. So shouldn't you try to fill your life as much as possible with new experiences and fun things? And where does the line get drawn between FOMO being depressive and negative and only a bad thing in your life versus not ever letting it kind of influence you to go and put yourself out there and like try new things and do fun things and experience stuff? I don't know. I've been having trouble. I really don't think I compare myself to other people often, but I think it's just a subconscious thing that we all do. Like, I don't consciously look at someone and think like, I wish I had that. I think that's like such a whack mentality to have. But I think just being inundated with other people's lives all the time with social media, it's impossible not to at least subconsciously be thinking like, I don't know, why am I not there? And that could be in a career aspect, it could be a life aspect, it could be like your group of friends goes and does something and you're like, fuck, what? I think FOMO partially comes from comparison, which is the thief of joy, like Zach said. But also like feeling left out or like feeling unwanted. I guess those are two different types of FOMO though. Like if you see your friend go do something, or a group of friends or a group of people that you are friendly with going to do something and you were unaware of it, it's only natural to be like, well, what the hell? Why I couldn't have done that too? Or, and we've all had that experience before. But we've also probably all been on the other side where it's nothing personal. It's just you ended up going to do this with this person. It's like life is just funny because it's like we take things personally that we also do to other people, knowing that when we do it to other people, we're not doing it as a personal attack. And the moral of the story is we just need to stop taking anything personally. Even if it is a personal attack on you, it is up to you to not take it personally, because then you're letting that person win. You're letting that evil take over your body, take over your mindset, take over your mental health, when like it's not that serious. Even if someone is personally doing something against you, the only way they win is if you take it personally. And you need to realize that if someone is doing something against you personally, it's really on them. It's that they're taking out something that's within them on you. So why would you ever take that personally? It's a them problem. It's not a you problem. And I know that's easier said than done, but it's like literally almost any situation in life you can apply that to, where either one of two things is the truth. This isn't something personal against you, so you're making this up in your own head. Or it is something personal against you, and it's on them, it's not on you. It's not up to you to accept this personal attack and be like, oh, I guess I deserve it. Or, no, it's on them. Let them do them, and you do you. Did that make sense? Sometimes I say things, and I'm picturing this thing in my head, this situation in my head where this applies to perfectly, but you can't see what's in my head. So it's like, how would you know? I don't know. This all feels so different now not having Zach. I need to get more people in here. It's not as fun. Something I'm realizing more and more as life goes on is how much our childhood really affects our adulthood. Because sometimes I'll be around a kid and I'll think like, I literally remember nothing from when I was that age. And then something will happen and I'll have a flashback to a memory around that age. I don't know, kindergarten, first grade, third grade, fifth grade, whatever it is. And realize, oh, my entire mindset on this particular type of situation is strictly based on what I experienced at that age. And it's almost intimidating because you realize as a parent, not that I'm a parent, but you realize that as a parent or an uncle or any position where you have influence over over adolescence or the life of a kid, there's a certain pressure to it. It's not like if something goes wrong, it means you're going to fuck up this person's life forever. But so many experiences in our childhood are just stored away for a time when our adult brain is like ready to access it and be like, oh yeah, this is the only experience I have with this thing was from my childhood, and this is how I feel about it, even into adulthood. Or just really our childhood just shapes the way our brain maneuvers the next 5 years, 10 years, 15 years. And of course, we're always rewiring it and checking ourselves and like learning. You know, you don't think everything you thought as a child, but just there are like hidden experiences that you had during your childhood that don't come out until it's like, oh shit, I didn't even know I had that memory. And so that can be that could be a very dark area to navigate, because some of those experiences are positive. Some of it is like, oh yeah, when I was a kid, I used to love doing this, and now I still love it as an adult. Some of those experiences are like, this was the most traumatic event of my childhood, and it's still influencing the way I deal with people or situations or things. And that's all therapy, dude. You have to go to therapy to work those things out. You're not going to be able to just like shove it aside, or I don't know. I guess we all have different brains. Maybe some people are more equipped to unpack those things and kind of put them where they belong. But I think for the most part, the best way to deal with any sort of childhood trauma is therapy. And, you know, it comes in all shapes and sizes. So some people have had, I was lucky enough to where, I don't know. It's like my relationship with my mom is the perfect example of this, because there's no doubt that growing up, some of the actions or some of the decisions my mom made or some of the things that just happened in her life affected my life quite a bit and affected decisions I made and still affect me to this day. But also she's my biggest role model and my biggest supporter and my best friend, because she's grown so much as a person and has kind of worked through so many demons that she's had. But to me, that's like the perfect example of your childhood affecting your adulthood, at least like just personally in my own story, because like some of those things were terribly traumatic at the time, and I don't consciously think of them often, but then there are times where it's like, oh yeah, that's why I view this situation the way I do, because I went through this with my mom, and you know, that has kind of shaped me to think this way about this thing. But then there are other people who had far worse experiences in their childhood and have never weren't in an environment that was conducive to working through them, or never were validated by the adults around them. And you see the way it affects people in their affects people in their adulthood, and that's sad. That could be damaging. This is what going back to like having pressure as an adult or a parent, in how you like communicate with kids or how you deal with them, the things you do to them, the things you say to them, because that stuff really like trickles into every essence of who you are as an adult. And hurt people hurt people, that old saying, it's so true. And when you're hurt as a kid and you never deal with that and you become a hurt adult, you will just hurt other people, whether it's intentionally or not. And if it's intentionally, it's probably because of all this trauma you have not dealt with. And if it's unintentionally, it's because you don't even realize how damaged you are. And so it's like so imperative. It's so imperative that you go to therapy, you seek help and work through those things, because otherwise they're going to always have a thumbprint on what you're dealing with in life. And that's no bueno. That's no good. There's two ways of dealing with childhood trauma. And that's one is letting it completely dictate who you are as an adult in a negative way and never unpacking all the things that you experienced as a kid. And the other way is healthily unpacking all these experiences and using it to better you as an adult and better you as a potential parent. It can cause you to really be a patient, considerate friend and human, because you know what it's like to not get that attention the way you need it, versus not ever dealing with it and being the exact opposite. I mean, this is the most drastic possible explanation of it, but if you watch any sort of serial killer documentary, 99% of them had a terrible childhood and a terrible upbringing. And that doesn't mean that there weren't choices that they made along the way that made them who they are or who they infamously became. But there's certainly a trending theme with that it's like your childhood matters so much into your adulthood. And like none of those people went to therapy or did any of the things that are necessary in unpacking those like traumatic childhood things. And who knows? Again, it's environment. I don't know. Nature versus nurture is like, I think it's damn near 50-50. I think there are certain things maybe we are predisposed to genetically, and our environment dictates 100% if we go one way or the other. And all I'm saying is you don't have control over what happened in your childhood. All you have is control over how you deal with it in your adulthood. And therapy is the number one way to me that you can unpack all of that and just put it where it belongs, whether that be in the back of your mind, never to be thought of again, which is probably not the case, or it be confronting family or parents that may have affected you in one way or another during your childhood, or just venting about it and letting go of things that happened in your childhood, specifically to a therapist, and allowing someone to be like, hey, listen, this is how I see it from the outside, and you have every right to feel the way you do, but I don't think anyone wants to be carrying that burden with them all the time. So you got to do something about it, bottom line. I'm pretty sure all of this has been gibberish. I don't know. Let me take a sip. Last week was so easy. I just asked a question and let Zach talk and say fucking smart, insightful stuff. And then I just sit back and listen and then eventually ask another question. Interviewing is pretty easy. Not that it was an interview, it was a discussion, but you know what I mean. Yeah, dude. Fucking life is just hard sometimes. I don't know why it's so hard. It's not hard, though. You know what I mean? Like, it's not. But, like, it is. It's all about your perspective. I was just driving in the car. If it seems like I'm being like today, because that's how I feel. I was driving the car earlier to get this delicious coffee, and feeling sorry for myself a little, which is dumb and I hate it and I don't ever want to feel sorry for myself, but I did in this moment. And I just rolled the window down, let the sun hit me, and it's a Sunday. So up on Pico Boulevard, there's like little swap meets and things. There's music playing and people walking around and talking and experiencing life. And it just made me feel for 1 second like I was part of something. Like I was part of something bigger than me. Just seeing all these little people moving around, and going about their life. And they all have their own worries and struggles and all that stuff, just like I do. And hearing laughter and yelling and, just different human emotion. Just like letting myself breathe in that moment and really take it in. Stay at the stoplight for an extra second to like people watch. And it helped. It helped me feel less sorry for myself. It helped me realize like I am part of this big, great, incredible thing called life, humanity. And I'm not going to, ultimately nothing I do is going to impact it too dramatically one way or the other. And I don't mean that in a way of like doing a disservice to myself of the impact that I could have on the world, right? Because, yeah, we all have the potential to do great things. So I'm not saying anything against that. But more, I mean, I feel sometimes I put this like outside pressure on myself that doesn't really exist. It's all in my head of like, but I'm part of this and I'm supposed to do my part. And like, yeah, there's some truth to that, but also it doesn't really fucking matter as long as I'm doing what makes me happy and makes the people around me happy. And like keeping up with my relationship and relationships and just like enjoying each moment as much as I can. And I do struggle with like the balance of planning for the future and enjoying the present. But the bottom line is, if you were gonna choose one over the other, which it should be a balance of both. But if you were gonna choose one or the other, I would imagine the present is probably more important because the future literally doesn't exist. It doesn't exist yet, and it might never exist. So why would I get too caught up on the future instead of just enjoying the present moment? And like Zach said last week, it's like, are you willing to chase this thing for 30 years that you might not attain for another 30 years? And be unhappy every second of it just because you're not where you think you're supposed to be yet. And in terms of like the grind mindset and, I want this more than anything, yes, I am. But at the same time, I can acknowledge in my head now that would be a complete waste of my life to go 30 years and achieve something I think I want, but not enjoy a single second of it. So I was thinking all of this at the intersection. And it did help me kind of just snap back to reality and be like, yo, just chill out. Just take a deep breath. It's all good. So here I am sitting down doing the podcast. I didn't really feel like doing it today, and that was probably obvious for the first few minutes, and I apologize for that. But it's like, this is where the fun part or the not so fun part of accountability comes in. And that's, for example, I didn't feel like doing this podcast today. The only person I'm doing it for is me. No one else gives a fuck. No one else is going to really, at least at this moment, no one else is coming to me and being like, yo, where's the new episode? It's just fucking me. And, however many people watching it, whatever. That's the tough one. There's no outside pressure on me to do any of this. It's all internal. And it's all a battle with myself of like, yo, it's completely up to you to do this. It's completely up to you to remain consistent or let it go completely and never do it again, never pick it up again, never make another song again. And that's a difficult thing to navigate. That's a difficult thing to accept, but it's also the most rewarding, most, I feel like most soul enriching part of life is self-accountability and realizing that even when you are working on like a project with someone else or in the business world, like there are expectations on you from someone other than yourself. It's still all is a battle with you. It's still all a you thing. Like fuck anyone else. Like you want to prove to them that you're doing the right thing for you, not for them. Or I guess that's the way it's supposed to be. That's the way it should be. It shouldn't be for someone else's approval. It shouldn't be for a carrot or a sticker on the wall at work or at school. It should be for you. because the only thing you have to like rest your head on at night sometimes is just that you did your best. You're doing your best. And as long as you're doing your best, it really doesn't matter. None of the other shit matters. I'm trying to remind myself of that. That's why I just got so amped up all of a sudden, even though I was fucking sleeping 10 seconds ago in the podcast. It's like none of it, it's all for me. It's all for you. But it's like, it's a moment of pride when you overcome that, like, feeling sorry for yourself thing. And like, again, there's no external pressure for me to do anything right now. It's all on me. If I want it, it's there for the taking. And if I don't want it, someone else will take it. But that's where another thing where the FOMO comes in. It's not just fear of missing out on like fun stuff. It's like sometimes I get FOMO of missing out on opportunities. And I'm trying to remind myself to accept that's, not every opportunity is for you. Your opportunity will present itself when it's time to present itself. But you also need to go seek it out. See what I'm saying? That's a tough balance. It's a tough thing to really understand. It's not all the world presenting you 3 options every day, right? You could do this, you could do this, you could do this. No, you have to go seek out that option. You have to go hunt for the food that is on those 3 plates and then choose, I'll take this meal today. And it takes a while to like really internalize and accept and like adapt into your mindset and your lifestyle. But I think it's important to your mental health that you do accept that. And understand that there are going to be opportunities out there that are not for you. And you're the only one that can really dictate which ones are and aren't for you. But also, some of those opportunities have to be self-made. They have to, like, you have to put the initiative forward to create them for yourself. Like, I don't know. I don't know exactly how to explain it. Like, just sometimes, like, half the stuff I follow are, like, musicians, producers, whatever, on Instagram. And they're doing things that I can, for a second, when I get weak, convince myself, like, I should be doing that. I should be there. But it's like, well, I didn't do any of the things that person did to get that yet. Or I haven't walked that person's exact path. It's very difficult for me to accept that I have my own path, because even though, like, I like the road I've traveled thus far, like, I think it's interesting. I think I've experienced a million cool things. I've experienced hardship. I've experienced joy. I've experienced a little bit of everything. And even then, it's still hard for me to accept that, like, my path was not what I thought it would be by now. And it doesn't exactly mirror other people who have chased something similar to what I'm chasing. But like, then when I say it out loud, it sounds so stupid. It's like, yeah, duh. You didn't fucking grow up there. You didn't do that. You know what I mean? You lost your dad when you were 15. This person, their aunt had cancer and their grandma raised, I don't know. You know what I mean? We all have our own story and our own path, but sometimes it's difficult for me to accept that just, like, that's why I'm not where I want to be yet. Because on my path, it just hasn't happened. And where I want to be might not even exist. It's like, that's where all of this, like, ties back into just accepting where I am at this moment and just being happy. It's not worth not being happy. Nothing is going to happen for me not being happy. Like, putting suffering on myself, like, doing things that are hard and proving to yourself you can overcome them is one thing, but putting unnecessary mental suffering on yourself is a complete waste of time. A complete waste of time. I'm wasting my time by being like, you don't have what you want yet, so you can't be happy. That's not going to push me forward at all. It's just going to make me miserable. So I'm trying to convince myself of this, because for the longest time, I've always told myself, and it's hard to, like, retrain yourself or untrain yourself of a certain frame of thought that you go by for a long time. But I always told myself, like, I won't be happy until. Because I thought that was, like, the right way to chase something. Well, you can't accept being happy until you get this thing. I don't know. Maybe that works for some people, but I'll tell you what, it's led to a pretty miserable existence for me at times. it is the main cause of my anxiety and my depression. So I need to let go. I need to give that up. And it doesn't mean I don't fucking push my foot on the gas as hard as I can and chase what I want as hard as I fucking can. It doesn't mean that. But what it means is accept that you can be happy on the way. Accept that accept that there are opportunities for happiness every step of the way, not just the top of the hill. When you get to the top of the hill, guess what? You got to go back down. You're not going to fucking live there. You got to do other things. There's going to be other challenges and other fucking shit you got to deal with. And if I don't get my mind right before I go to the top of this fucking made up mountain that I've created for myself, I'll never be happy. Whether I'm up there looking down at this beautiful view or not, I'll never be happy. And I always, for the longest time, I really thought that was the only mindset you could have on your way to chasing something you want. And now the more and more I go through life, the more I realize, like, no, that's literally the opposite of what you should be doing. You should be enjoying every second of your life that you can. That's not to say lie to yourself. When something sucks, it sucks. But adjust your perspective. Look at it for what it is. Look at it for where it fits in your life. Put it where it belongs and move on. And just choose to be happy as much as you fucking can. Otherwise, it's all for nothing. It's all for nothing. And as time goes on, it becomes more and more apparent. My niece, I was just texting my niece, which is still crazy to me that I can text her. And she qualified for states in swimming in Georgia. Couldn't be more proud. But I was just thinking, like, sometimes I get sad that I'm missing some of this stuff, which I am because I don't live in Georgia and I probably never will. I get upset that time is going. It's just a reminder when I speak to her that time is moving so fast, so quickly. But that's the reminder. It's like I'll never get this time back, And sometimes it's only sad when I think about that sometimes, where it's like I'm missing out on this or these things, and I'm this age, and I feel so old sometimes. And then there are other times where it's like a sobering reminder that you're right, you're not going to get any of these time back. So do everything you can to make the most of it while you can. Whether that be like making sure that I talk to her after a swim meet because I know I can't be there, or you know what I mean, like. Just making sure that in every moment I can, I'm just trying to like fucking let things go and be happy. And that's hard. It's hard, especially when you're dealing with certain things like I don't know, I don't want to talk about it, but I guess it's like a venting thing. That was an inner monologue again that just came out. Like, there are certain things that I'd like to talk about on this podcast. Like literally there's only one thing that I don't feel comfortable sharing. It's just because I don't want other people to feel any type of way about it. I'm just trying to be like courteous to other people. I don't want it to affect them negatively. But everything else, like anything in my life, if someone were to come here and ask me questions, I would literally say anything. I don't care. I want to be transparent and open because that's the environment I'm trying to create for other people. And understanding that being transparent and open is the only way to improving your mental health and ending the stigma so that other people can continue to improve their mental health. But anyways, just there's relationships in my life that have fallen apart that hurt badly. And I think about them from every fucking angle possible. And I accept responsibility for things that I maybe have not even done, just in terms of trying to put myself where this other person could possibly be coming from. I'm not a perfect person. I have not always made the right decision. Obviously, no one is. No one has. But sometimes when you're dealing with like something like a relationship falling apart, I don't know. There's three sides to every story. And I recognize and appreciate that there are things that I've done wrong, for sure. There's things that I could have handled better, absolutely. But sometimes I fear that the other person doesn't see it that way about themselves. And that scares me or like hurts, because it's like So you really think that everything that happened is my fault? Like, it's not, even if it was, that's not, even if, because from my perspective, sometimes it feels like everything that fell apart was this other person's fault. But I know that's not real. I know that's not reality. I know I have to accept some responsibility for whatever happened. And that's a really difficult thing to accept with someone that you love and care about, ultimately, no matter where your relationship is at. It's hard to accept that, like, there could be one of a million ways this person feels. Until you confront it and speak to them, you'll never know. And I don't know if that'll ever happen. I feel like I've put my effort into making that conversation happen. I don't know if it ever will. And that would be a real shame if it didn't. But because I've thought about it every which way, I've realized more and more that I need to just accept, again, the theme of this episode is just accepting where I'm at this time. I can't control what this other person thinks. I can't control how things affected these other people. All I can control is, to me, the right way to go about it is accept any responsibility I could possibly have for negatively affecting the situation as badly as it is at this moment. And for my own sake, even though I don't think it's fair, well, by the way, life's not fair. Even though I don't think it's fair, I need to accept that the other person might never see that they have responsibility in it too. And I think that's right? No. But for my own sake, I know that I'll just beat myself up over this situation in my head over and over and over again and think, like, how could you see it this way? And that's not going to help me or the situation. I need to just let it go. And, but the thing is, that's just my perspective. There are multiple other perspectives in this situation that I can't control. And that's what I struggle with, is like, I can't make this other person feel the same way I do and be like, okay, well, let's unpack these things. I'm wrong. You're wrong. We're wrong. Okay. This is what I am apologetic for. That's what you should be apologetic for. Can we move forward at all from this? Or at least let bygones be bygones and just know, like, hey, this is what it is. It's very difficult for me to accept that other people might not feel that way because I feel like they should feel that way, you know? And especially because it's not just like, I don't know. It's not like, you know, Joe Blow that I fucking met once. You know what I mean? It's like, it's such an important it's family. It's family. It's a family problem. And not everyone involved, I think, looks at it that way or understands that. Or maybe they did at one point, but they don't anymore. And that it's hard. It's a hard pill to swallow. When relationships start and end, and there's just so many emotions involved, like, it's a very difficult thing to accept and process. And I know for a fact that for my own mental health, I need to just kind of let a lot of it go. But that's hard. That's hard. Things are always intertwined. There's no, if you pull on something here, something else moves over there. It's impossible for there to be a complete, like, I can't erase this from my memory. I know that, but the closest I can get to that is just accepting it for what it is, and that's not the easiest thing to do either. Because I do think that I don't know, I think that it won't be possible for me to fully accept it for what it is until it gets confronted head on. And I don't know if or when that will ever happen. And so that part sucks because I feel like I'm almost like trapped in this like endless loop in my head of having this conversation over and over and over again that might never even take place. And I'm really struggling, like, quieting that conversation down until it just happens, if it happens. Again, I can't control too much of that. We can't really control much of anything, honestly. We almost have zero control over what happens. Almost none. And that's why I constantly remind myself, and that's why I try, all right, let me try this one more time. That's why I have tried to train myself to, like, rip the joy out of everything and hold on to it as hard as I can, even though it doesn't always work out that way sometimes. And I get angry and I get impatient and I get sad and I get depressed and I feel sorry for myself at times. As long as I can kind of recalibrate and remember and remind myself, like, you got no control, dude. The only thing you can control is how you perceive what's going on around you. So I'm always try to take the high road and always try to like accept things for what they are and just be as happy as I can in each moment. That doesn't mean sad things don't exist. Like Zach said last week, that doesn't mean hard things don't happen. That doesn't mean bad things don't happen to good people. And that is a fucking tragedy. It is. But what are you going to do about it? I'm not saying to sit back and be complacent with wrongdoings that you see. Like, be a good person, do the right thing, try to help other people, try to be the conduit for change where you think you can, if it means more positivity in the world. But at the same time, there are things you need to just accept that you're not going to change, and one of them is other people. That's maybe my biggest struggle. I'm not ever going to change someone's mind. I might be able to give them my opinion, and if they're like me and they can play devil's advocate and understand where I'm coming from, at least we can get to an understanding. Convincing someone is completely out the window. They might change their opinion naturally on their own, but it's not going to be because of me. The only way to really rectify anything is just, getting to understanding where someone's coming from and hoping that they can understand where you're coming from and moving on from there. But you're not going to change anyone. You're not going to change much of anything, realistically. There's this big game going on that none of us are even really part of. Or I guess that we're all part of, but none of us knew we're even playing it. And just for your own mental health, specifically with your mental health, just accepting the lack of control you have over most of what happens in your life is important. But also not ignoring the things you can control. Because sometimes that can go too far, where you become like almost nihilistic about stuff, and it's like, what does it all mean anyway? Fuck it. I can't control it. I'm not going to change the world. I suppose I'm really contradicting myself back and forth here, but I guess it's just because I'm working through it in my head. It's just a balancing act, man. You gotta accept that shit you just will never be able to change, like specifically other people and how they view you, and courageously take on the things that you can change, which is your own circumstance, the things you achieve in life, how positive your relationships can be with everyone you come in contact with. Those are the things you can control. And I promise your mental health will improve quite a bit if you focus pretty much only on the shit you can control. And just let the other stuff fall where it may. And again, I keep saying this in this episode, but put it where it belongs and leave it there. There's only so much you can control. There's only so much you can do. So I'm not going to watch the Grammys tonight. I don't know if that's groundbreaking news. I just don't really care. I want to care. You know what I mean? I want to care. Like when I see an artist that I admire like wins a Grammy, I'm like, oh, that's awesome. But honestly, outside of that, I don't really care. I used to care. It's not that I mean, I would love to one day be in a position to be there, win a Grammy, be part of something like that. But like, I don't know. This is where the ego thing comes in. It's like, I don't think it's bad to like want to win and want the recognition from your peers or from people who supposedly have like a plate, like they have a right to judge things. You know what I mean? Like critics and shit. The Academy, when it comes to acting, like I guess they have been bestowed this position of like control and power, and I guess sometimes it's deserving, but like it's not bad to want those things, but I go back and forth in my head because I'm like, it's also kind of weird to like be celebrated too much. I don't know, but like at the same time, that's what like wanting people to like my music is pretty much that. It's like this weird I need outside approval and validation for me to feel worth it, which is dumb. Like, I know that's wrong, but at the same time, you want people to like your music, for them to, I don't know. So that's kind of my view on the Grammys and award shows in general. It's tough for me to get into them now because I just feel like so much of it is manufactured and like it's like very self-serving. But then again, you see people who fucking cry on stage and like, oh my God, I've been working my whole life for this moment. And you see how much it does mean and how much it can mean to someone. I don't know. It's back and forth. It's another difficult thing for me is that, like, you'll see a certain album win album of the year, or like an artist win in a category, and like universally almost, it's like that person shouldn't win. They don't deserve that. Which then invalidates the award show completely. But then someone wins that you think deserves it, and it's like, yes, congratulations. This is a huge career achievement. It's very difficult for me to like get into it because the whole process of how I judge it is so hypocritical in my own head that it's hard for me to like enjoy stuff like that. Because on one hand, it's like, you know, like, or like Best Picture, half the time it's like movies that like the average consumer has not seen or even heard of. But that doesn't mean it doesn't deserve Best Picture. But I don't know. It's all over the place with the award shows. Sometimes it's like, oh my God, like Leonardo DiCaprio finally wins Best Actor for The Revenant. It's like, yes, amazing. And then someone else will get snubbed for some other award, and it's like, dude, these award shows are bullshit. It's hard for me to pick a side and stick to it. But yeah, so long story short, I probably will not be tuning into the Grammys. Probably watch the new episode of The Last of Us, which is excellent. If you haven't checked that out, I highly recommend it. I played the game. I've always been a PlayStation guy. I had Xbox at one point, but I've typically been a PlayStation user for most of my gaming career, along with Nintendo. Always had like a GameCube and stuff. Still do. I'm looking at Sonic Mega Collection, Dragon Ball Z Budokai. What other GameCube games do I have right there that I can quickly name? Oh, Super Smash Bros. Melee. It's not mine. I think it's Casey's. Mario Kart Double Dash. By the way, to me, best Mario Kart ever. No question. It still holds up to me as the best one. Anyways, I've always been a PlayStation guy, so I was lucky enough to be one of the people that actually played The Last of Us when it first came out. And then it was critically acclaimed, and they re-released it a couple times, and then, you know, the sequel was really, really good. I played that too. But so I was like, oh shit, they're going to make a show. And then it was my boy Pedro Pascal. I was like, this is going to be fucking sick. And it has been. I've loved the first couple episodes. So I highly recommend if you haven't watched it. It's funny because, like, with sports, Jay is Dominican. So baseball is easy. She picked up on, she always grew up like kind of watching it. Her grandpa always listened to it on the radio. Her dad's a big baseball fan. Her brother was really good at baseball. So it was like it was an easy transition for her to be a sycophant like me once we started dating. But football took a little more time, and now she like enjoys watching it typically on Sundays. Like she'll watch a little bit with me. But it's like same thing with like a show like The Last of Us, right? It's like, I promise you'll like this. And then I don't know where it's going to go from there. Maybe she'll like it, maybe she won't. Or maybe she'll become obsessed with Pedro Pascal, and then I'll have to hear about it all the time. And that's what happened. That's my point. Same thing with football. She fucking loves Travis Kelce now. And it's like, now you made this a different thing for me. Now I have to root for the Eagles in the playoffs, or in the Super Bowl, which sucks. Because not that I have anything against the Eagles, but like I like the Chiefs. I like Travis Kelce. I like Patrick Mahomes. But now that you have admitted to me that you're low-key obsessed with Travis Kelce, I can't root for the guy. And that's just my ego and, you know, dumb man shit talking. I'm just kidding around. But The Last of Us. Man, I really this was an interesting episode. I got to start just talking to myself the first like 15 minutes of episodes and then start, because the first few minutes are always like a slog. I don't know exactly where I'm going. And then I feel like it's like an arc like this. It gets good, and then it dies out a little, then it's a little bit better, and then, not that this matters, I shouldn't be saying this anyway, because if you're listening, I'm just supposed to act like it's so good and important and interesting what I'm saying and doing. I think I'll just wrap it up here. Again, if you haven't watched the episode with Zach, I highly recommend it. It was excellent. He should be hosting this podcast, not me. He's a super interesting dude. Please go watch that. Also, today I will be putting the finishing touches on the first single of the year. So once Tim mixes it, it'll be ready to go. That'll be dropping soon. It's called, I'm not going to tell you yet. And so that's exciting. I don't know. I feel a little stuck right now, but I got to just trust the process. I got to trust that the right things will come my way, but I also got to put myself out there a little more and seek them out. And that's what's tough, because sometimes you don't know what you're supposed to even be looking for, but I'm looking. So I guess that's the first step, but I hope you're doing okay. This was a tough week for me. I don't really know why. Not much has changed. But this week was tough, and I'm just trying to rebalance everything and just attack it with a clearer head. Realize it's all going to be okay, and I just have to enjoy every moment as much as I can. And that's hard for me. That's hard, especially when I feel like I'm just not where I'm supposed to be yet. But, Frank, accept you're exactly where you're supposed to be at this moment and in every moment. But then again, if you're not where you're supposed to be and you're in a bad situation, you better get yourself the fuck out of there. So, thank you again for tuning in. I'm pretty sure some really cool, exciting stuff is on the way. So you should keep tuning in and stay tuned. If you haven't already, please like. I don't know. Why do I say that? It's fucking dumb. Everyone knows what to do. You know by now if you're consuming anything on YouTube. If you really care and like that person, you should probably subscribe to their page and share their stuff. Yeah, do that for real if you haven't. Follow me on social media, because I post a lot of shit. Actually, I don't post enough. Now I'm just rambling. Now I don't, I'm going through my head and the things that a professional person would say, like, make sure, blah, blah, blah. This episode is brought to you by fucking Blue Chew. I don't know. I love you guys so much. Thank you very much for watching and tuning in. I hope that this episode was tolerable, and next week's will probably be better. So, again, listen to the episode with Zach if you haven't yet. It was great. He's a fucking awesome guy. He's gone through it all in his life and really made himself into a well-rounded, just human being. And I'm proud of him as a friend, and I'm blessed to have him as a friend. So, go listen to that. Take care of yourself this week. I got to remember I got this. You got to remember you got this. And if not, we got this. We got each other's back. We can do this. You got this shit. Another week of life. Congratulations. See you next time. And you'll have lived another week of your life out and push yourself that much more to continue just trying to live a happy, fulfilled life. So thank you again. See you guys next week. Take care of yourself.